It's dark, it's cold, and all you want to do is curl up into your little hermit hole, but you are not going to do that this year, right? This is going to be the year that you embrace the months of darkness and avoid the seasonal sads, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that in today's video. Hi, I'm Dr. Mel. I'm a licensed naturopathic doctor. On this channel, I talk about all things holistic well-being, how you can take care of yourself so you can be the best you. And I don't know about you, but I get a little bit of anxiety going into the winter season, the end of fall, when I know that transition is about to happen. We've just had daylight savings. Suddenly it's way darker, way earlier, and you just know it's coming, right? You're probably not at the seasonal sads yet, but because we know that's where it's heading, we can be really strategic about prevention. I think it's way better to set ourselves up well, to be prepared for it, instead of needing to dig ourselves out of a hole in January. These are gonna be things that you can easily add into your routine in the coming weeks, just little switch ups to your routine, honestly. And it's gonna make this transition into winter, into these darker months, so much easier on your mental, your physical, your emotional health. So yes, we're gonna talk about a lot of things that I like to talk about on this channel, like exercise and herbs, but I'm gonna give you ideas on how you can spin it to be really helpful for this time of year and to prevent seasonal depression, the seasonal sads. Disclaimer that this is educational information. This is not medical advice. You should always consult your healthcare provider before implementing any new supplements or changes to your routine. If you are struggling with severe depression, I highly encourage you to reach out and get help. This video is gonna be helpful for preventing seasonal depression, for mild dips in your mood when you know you get those blues in the winter time. But if you are feeling severely depressed, please talk to a doctor or a therapist. Your mental health matters, you matter, and you deserve that support. All right, grab yourself a cozy cup of tea, maybe a notebook and a pen. I think you're gonna wanna take notes for this one, and let's get right into it. The biggest thing to keep in mind this time of year is the absence of sunlight, right? That's the big hallmark of winter, is that we have much longer nights, we have less sun, less light exposure, and this can really wreak havoc on your sleep cycle. So your circadian rhythm relies on that input of light exposure. The sun coming up in the morning is a cue for us to wake up and have energy for our day. The sun going down at night gives the cue to produce melatonin, which helps you to fall asleep. I'm sure you can already tell there's a lot of problems with that in winter. One, if the sun is going down at 5, 4, even 3:30 in some places, you're probably not going to bed at 6 p.m., 7 p.m. And the second factor that kind of goes along with this is that we have so much more blue light exposure from our devices. We have a lot more artificial light sources that can disrupt that circadian rhythm. With the timing of these light cues being a little bit different in the winter, you might struggle with more insomnia this time of year. One way we can prevent that is to make sure that you are getting light exposure when you can. Ideally, your first light exposure would be outside within an hour of waking up. And this can be as little as 5 minutes. I know when it gets really cold, this isn't the most enjoyable activity, but you just want to get sunlight on your eyeballs. So that does mean no sunglasses, and obviously don't look directly into the sun. But that is especially going to help if you have a lot of morning grogginess, you find it really hard to get out of bed. That is going to give you that light cue that increases our cortisol in the morning, which we want. I know there's a lot of talk about high cortisol, but I actually see low cortisol a lot more. Your cortisol should be naturally highest in the morning. That's what gives you the energy to go about your day. And when it's too low, sometimes that can be why we feel really sluggish and have a hard time getting going. So we're getting morning light exposure. I like an afternoon light exposure too, especially because we just have less sunlight during the day, especially the work day. A lot of people might be leaving work now and it's already dark out. So a lunchtime sun exposure is really nice. Again, it can be 5 to 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be a long amount of time. And then if you can, closer to sunset, I know that's not always doable, obviously with work, but do your best. You want to get those multiple light exposures to help with the circadian rhythm, which is then going to help you to be able to sleep better. Another thing that's really important to keep in mind with your sleep, and this is a recommendation I give all year, but it's an important reminder, try your best to keep the same wake time and bedtime. Your body likes that routine, it likes that ritual, and especially if on the weekends, say you're sleeping in 3 hours later than you normally wake up on a weekday, I want you to think about when you travel to a different time zone and you have jet lag. You're essentially giving yourself jet lag. The more that you can keep your wake times and bedtimes the same, the better and deeper you're gonna sleep, which means that you will have more energy the next day. Something that can happen in the winter, because we're spending so much more time inside and often it's dark outside, is we're spending a lot more time on our devices. We have a lot more artificial light that we're being exposed to. So this can get really confusing for our circadian rhythm when we are having these artificial light exposures. Once you set your bedtime that you're gonna keep the same every single day, I want you to reverse engineer engineer, about an hour, ideally 2 hours before bed is when you're gonna put away all of your devices. We're gonna turn the TV off, we're gonna put the phone away, iPad, laptop, everything. If you can, you're gonna dim the lights, you're gonna put candles on, salt lamps. We want very low light. This is gonna help your body to naturally unwind and help you to fall asleep a lot easier. So to recap, getting as much natural light during the day as you can, ideally morning, lunchtime, and right before sunset. Sticking to the same wake time and bedtime every single night so that we can keep ourselves on a nice routine and schedule. And putting away devices, avoiding blue light and artificial light 1 to 2 hours before bed every night. I know it's dark and cold out, but if there is one thing that is really going to help prevent the seasonal blues, it's to exercise. I know, completely unfair, that the very best thing that you could do is the hardest to do when you have no motivation and are feeling low. But truly, if I could bottle up one treatment to help with depression, it would be exercise. There have been so many human studies, and I'll link a meta-analysis below, on the power of exercise with depression. As little as 2 to 3 weeks of consistent exercise was found to be comparable to an antidepressant medication for mild to moderate depression. That is really powerful. And I know it can be a little confusing to think about how exercise can help with depression. Often depression is just thought to be a mental health thing, but it is really hard to think your way out of a bad mood. I'm sure you've tried it. I have, and usually it just makes me spiral even more. If you have depression, you've probably been told to journal or meditate. That can definitely help for sure. I'm not knocking any of those, but I do find some of those practices to be more helpful for anxiety, where you have a lot of circular thoughts, than depression. When you're feeling really foggy and stagnant, there's a disconnect between your mind and your body. Things are not flowing. So one of the best things that you could do is get in your body, get things flowing again, build some momentum, and release some of those feel-good neurotransmitters. And you can choose whatever type of exercise you like to do. Preferably, it would be one you actually enjoy doing. I always suggest people just start with walking. It's really accessible, easy to do. You don't have to walk fast. You can walk at whatever pace you want. But I would definitely suggest having a couple of different options of things that you like depending on your energy levels. Also, just think about ways that you can add bite-sized movement to your day. The classic, can you park farther away at the grocery store so you have to walk a little bit further? Can you take the stairs? Every hour, can you get up and do 10 squats? When you're feeling low, I know it can be hard to think about adding another thing like a workout to your to-do list. So instead, just try to think about how you could fit it into your day without it being this other thing you have to do. And this is where you also have to just know yourself and what you need. For me personally, I need a program, I need a plan, I need to know what my workouts are during the week, because if I don't have a plan in place already and I have to decide that day when I get to the gym what I'm going to be doing, I just get really overwhelmed or I won't go. If you like workout classes, you could pre-book your workout classes for the week, and usually there's a cancellation fee involved, so that's extra incentive to go. I do really like hot yoga and hot Pilates this time of year. It can feel really nice, especially when it's cold out, to be in a very warm room. This is actually the only time of year I would recommend it. From a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint, hot workouts are a very yang activity, so you wouldn't want to do yang activities during a yang season like summer. Winter is the yin season, so as we head into winter, adding in some more yang activity can help you feel a little bit more balanced. I would also really recommend having home options. In an ideal world, maybe you would go to the gym, but we don't live in an ideal world. We live in the real world. And in the real world, sometimes you don't want to go outside. You want to be cozy. So get prepared now. Maybe start saving some different YouTube workouts. Figure out a fitness app that you really like. You guys know I use the Peloton app, highly recommend. But there's tons of free workouts on YouTube, so you can save some yoga classes, some Pilates classes. There's some fun low impact dance classes you could do. Yoga with Adriene has always been my go-to. But make yourself a playlist, so again, you're not having to rely on your willpower, which might be really low when you're feeling down, and you already have a short list of things that look fun to you, and you can just pick one. The most important takeaway from this is that any movement is good movement, and it's really going to help you to prevent those seasonal blues. So have some different options available. Make it easy for yourself. Your body and your mind will thank you. This is a really good time of year to work on your health. Obviously, it's always a good time to work on your health, but I feel like you're naturally spending more time inside. You might have less social plans, especially when January 1 hits, there's a lot of motivation to work on your health. So now is a really good time to take stock of your health, to work with a doctor and develop a plan that you can start January 1. You could start it now, but I just know with the holidays coming up, again, we live in the real world. If you can get prepared now, you will be able to hit the ground running in January. And one of my favorite ways to do that is to get your lab work done done. There are a lot of nutrient deficiencies that can cause us to feel really sluggish, really low, no energy, and look a lot like seasonal depression. When in reality, you might have extremely low iron, you might be deficient in vitamin D, and that's what could be impacting your mood. I have an entire completely free lab testing guide linked down below. I have a whole list of my favorite labs to run for depression, and I also have cash pay options if going through a doctor isn't accessible to you right now. But I do want to briefly talk about my top 3 recommendations for having a low mood. So I would definitely make sure you check your vitamin D. This time of year, it's naturally lower. You might just need a supplement. It's really hard to get from your diet, and then when we don't have as much sunlight too, it's hard to get from the sun. It's really important to test before you supplement though, because it is a fat soluble vitamin, which means you can't have too much. I look at functional ranges for optimal health when I'm studying lab work. So I like to see vitamin D between a 60 and an 80. Another vitamin I like to check is vitamin B12. Low vitamin B12 can make you feel so lethargic, very low energy, and it's a really easy fix. Again, with a lot of these nutrient deficiencies, it's low hanging fruit. But these are labs again and again that I see when patients come to me with depression, with anxiety. They have no energy. These are the labs that often come back flagged. The third lab test I really want you to consider getting is checking your iron, specifically your ferritin levels. So usually doctors will run a CBC, which screens for anemia, which is great to run. The more sensitive marker is your ferritin. Ferritin is your stored form of iron. So if that starts to dip, we might be heading in the direction of anemia. And every body is so different at what level they start to express symptoms. And what I've seen is that when ferritin dips below a 50, we can start to see symptoms. Extremely low energy, extremely fatigued, very cold. So if you feel extremely cold in winter, it's intolerable to you, definitely get this checked. You have a hard time warming up, regulating your own temperature. Also, a big symptom I hear is this chest hollowness and shortness of breath sensation. So you can ask your doctor to run a full iron panel and just make sure that they run a ferritin, and you'll have a more comprehensive idea of your iron stores then. So again, vitamin D, vitamin B12, iron panel, specifically ferritin, in addition to annual labs if you haven't gotten those done. And again, I have a whole list in that free download, so definitely make sure you check that out. Herbs are one of my favorite things to rotate with the seasons. We have different needs in each season, and different herbs are going to better support us and support our bodies through those stages. Anytime we're talking about depression or feeling low, St. John's wort is one of my favorite herbs. This herb acts the same way as an SSRI, so it is important if you're taking an SSRI that you do not want to take St. John's wort, because too much of a good thing can result in serotonin syndrome, which we don't want. But if you're currently not on a medication, St. John's wort has been found to be just as effective as SSRIs for mild depression. You can take it in capsules, tincture. My favorite way to consume herbs is through tea. It is in the Fire Tea by Mind Body HERBALS. That's one I definitely have on hand a lot in the winter time. 2 other herbs that I really like in tea form are lemon balm, which is really good if you have both depression and anxiety. You've got the dynamic duo there. It was always taught to me that it helps bring joy to the heart, so it helps make things feel a little bit lighter. And then my favorite herb of all time, holy basil or tulsi. Really good if you have that stagnant type of depression. You just feel like you can't get yourself to do anything. You feel burnt out and depressed, and it has a really lovely sweet taste. So those are 2 that I like in tea as well. Lemon balm and holy basil are in earth and water from Mind Body HERBALS. And then 2 herbs that I would recommend in supplement capsule form are saffron, which you might know from cooking in the kitchen. Saffron's a really powerful antidepressant. Been shown to help improve mood, sleep, also anxiety if you've got the depression anxiety picture going on. Most research is based off of 30 milligrams per day in 3 divided doses. And you definitely want to make sure that you're getting organic, high quality saffron. And lastly, one of my favorite herbs when you just really need something to help with depression is mucuna. Mucuna is a really powerful herb. I really encourage you to work with a naturopathic doctor, an herbalist, someone who's really familiar with the herb. It acts on the dopamine pathway, so it helps to increase your dopamine, which can help you to feel a lot more mentally clear, help with that brain fog, more focused, more of a positive mood. It can be toxic in high doses, and it interacts with a lot of different medications, so you definitely want to make sure it's the right herb for you. Of course, medication is always an option as well. As a naturopathic doctor, I'm always going to give you other options to that, but just know that I respect and encourage you to use any tool that's available to you to make you feel better. That's what this is all about. A lot of my philosophy behind choosing the right herb for a patient, we just need you to start feeling better, to feel that cloud lifted off your shoulders so that you can do all the other things like exercise that are going to help you to feel better. With seasonal depression, regular depression, often it does require a lot of tools. And there are a lot of herbs that we can use alongside medication. In particular, saffron, really great for helping with a lot of the side effects that come with SSRIs like low libido. So just know it doesn't have to be one or the other. We can use all the tools that are available to us. It is so important in winter to keep drinking water. I know when it gets colder out, we're not sweating, we're maybe just not thinking about drinking enough water. I know I've already noticed it for me. I'm drinking so much less water, I'm gonna dry up like a little crusty raisin. I find this time of year, I really need to flavor my water in some way. So I'm a huge fan of herbal teas. Herbal teas count towards your water intake. It is just herbs infused in water. There's no caffeine because they're herbal herbs. Did I just say herbal herbs? Because herbal tea does not have caffeine in it. Something that's really helps me to drink more tea in the wintertime is getting a mug warmer. I feel like I would make a big thing of tea and then it would get cold and then I didn't really want to drink it anymore. So getting a warmer for my desk at work, I drink so much more tea now because it's so comforting this time of year to have a warm beverage. I also like, as part of your evening wind down routine, having a cup of tea as your ritual, but I will also flavor water with a squeeze of lemon, a little bit of lime juice. I will use a little sprinkle of electrolytes. I just feel like this time of year you don't need it as much because you're not sweating as much. Bone broth is another nice way to get in some hydration as well as a little bit of nutrition and protein. That's a nice savory alternative, but basically it's whatever you have to do to still get your hydration in. This time of year, for my mental health, for my mental sanity, I find it really helpful to lean into hobbies. Again, we're inside more, we can feel that cooped up energy, that cabin fever, and having something else to work on besides work can really give us something to look forward to, especially in the darker evenings. If you're new to finding a hobby, I have an entire video that talks about different low effort to high effort hobbies and finding the best one for you, so definitely watch that next. But this is also a great time of year to just try different things out. The common hobbies I think of in winter are more of the crocheting and knitting and reading, things that are really cozy, doing puzzles. You could do a Lego kit, but I think the big key is make them accessible. Last year during the winter, I just kept all of my creative journaling supplies out on my kitchen table. I just put them in a basket and I had it out on my kitchen table. And when I was eating breakfast, sometimes I would fill stuff in. At night, it was right there. So the barrier to entry was so low, I could just pick it up and do it again. So if you can, keep the supplies out on your coffee table, whatever you have to do. I think those visual reminders are really key, especially if you're like me and have a neurodivergent brain and tend to forget things if they're not in your direct line of sight. A tip I have for getting prepared, because we're all about getting prepared for this, we know the seasonal SADs are coming, is personally, I get overwhelmed when I think about all the different hobbies that I could be doing. There's so many things I'm interested in, I'm curious about. And then when it comes down to sit down and do a hobby, I'm like, well, I don't even know which one to do because I want to do them all. So something I did was I wrote down all of the little craft hobbies that I'm interested in and I put them in a jar and I can just pull one out. Stained glass kit that my mom got me for Christmas last year and I still haven't done. I can do this. This kind of turns it into a fun little game and you can be like, you know, by the end of winter, I want to finish the jar. But when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're already feeling down and it's really difficult to make a decision, I think this could be a nice way to get over that initial hump. At the start of every week, sit down and make sure that you have one thing on your calendar that you're looking forward to. Something that makes you a little bit happy, something you're gonna enjoy. You wanna sit with me? Oh, we've got a visitor. Even better if it's seeing friends, seeing family, seeing someone you really enjoy being around, having that social connection. But this could be as small as going to the movies, going to a new bookstore. I think it is great to get out of the house, but it could also be a show you watch every single week that you get really excited about. Trying out some new hobbies. Having something scheduled and on the calendar though is really important because it does give you something to look forward to. And bonus points if it's scheduled between the hours of 5 to 8 p.m. where it's already dark outside, your motivation might be lower, something that's gonna get you moving or get you out of the house. And to prep for this, again, I would make a list of activities that give you a little bit of dopamine. I do have a freebie called the Mind Body Toolkit, which walks you through all the different ways that you can support your mental health. So if you want a list to have in your back pocket of things that you can do, things that are gonna make you feel a little bit better, definitely check that out. I think the more that you can lean into these darker seasons, these colder seasons, the more you can embrace them, the better. I talk about this a lot in the seasonal resets, but we are cyclical beings. We live within nature. It is a symbiotic relationship, and the more that we can lean into it, the less resistance we'll feel. One way I like to do this is every season I pick out a new scent, a new candle. I find that to be a nice way to usher in a new season. So you might switch from citruses of summer to something that's a little bit more warm, like an amber scent, a cinnamon scent. It's always fun to go to TJ Maxx and just smell all the candles, and usually those are pretty seasonal. It's also very winter to be lighting candles and dimming the lights and embracing more of the darkness. You cook more stews and soups and have some crusty sourdough bread, matching your meals to what's in season. Maybe you really enjoy watching more movies this time of year, watching some of your nostalgic favorites. I also think it's important to take care of your space this time of year. I think spring cleaning has awesome PR, but fall cleaning is honestly more important. You're about to spend the next couple of months spending way more time probably in your house, so why not make it a really cozy, clean space for you? And also change your sheets every week. Is there anything else that you would add? Let me know down below how you embrace this season, how you prevent these seasonal sads from happening. Okay, this last section is what I would call nice to haves. These are definitely not things that you need to run out and buy, but the holidays are coming up. These are more of an investment into your health, and they're things that I personally have really benefited from, so I wanted to at least mention them. My absolute #1 recommendation, if you want to make an investment for anything related to health, is to get a sauna. And most people picture those big, really expensive saunas, which are so nice, but not accessible to all of us. 2 years ago for Christmas, I asked for a sauna blanket, which is basically just a sleeping bag that heats up to 170 degrees, which is crazy. And they're more affordable than you would think. Saunas feel so nice when it's cold outside. I notice I sleep so much better after I use the sauna. It helps with my mood, my energy levels. It's gonna help with your detox pathways. It's really an amazing overall health benefit. Again, if I could only recommend one additional thing, it would be that. #2, great time of year to try out acupuncture. I personally have found acupuncture to be so helpful for mental health conditions in general. I'm one of those people who goes between anxiety and depression, and I find it equally helpful for both. But in acupuncture, they can really target the treatment to you. And if you have multiple conditions going on, multiple things you want to work on in your health, they can address all of that. Acupuncture might be covered on your insurance, so definitely look into that. And if it's not accessible to you, I would look into community acupuncture. So you actually sit in a room with other people, and they will do points on your arms, on your legs, on your face actually. I've done community acupuncture a few times, and I found it to be a really lovely experience to be around other people and to be able to get treatment at a more accessible price point. And lastly would be a red light panel. I know red light is so trendy right now with all the masks for skin health. I personally have seen the most benefit on my mood from a red light panel. I find it just uplifts me. I like it, especially in the 3 p.m. slump when I really want more coffee. If I can do just a red light session, I notice that it gets me through the rest of the day. When I lived in Portland, Oregon, where it was very dark, the sun would go down at like 3 p.m. It was crazy. There was no light in the morning. I had one of those regular light boxes. I think it was called a Happy Light. So it's artificial, extremely bright light, nice to turn on in the morning when there's no light outside. I did find that helpful. It's a little bit less enjoyable because it's an extremely bright light. The red light is also extremely bright. You do want a very bright light. That is the point of things. And in terms of affordability, the Happy Light is definitely going to be more affordable. But again, these are just nice extras to have. You do not need any of these things. But if I had to recommend one, it would be the sauna. Maybe it feels early to you to talk about the seasonal sads, but I always think it's better to be prepared and to get ahead of things. Like I said, it's a lot easier to take steps now than it is to dig yourself out of the hole months later when you're really in it. Hopefully you're walking away from this video with very tangible ideas of how you can change up your routine to make it a little bit more mental health, seasonal sad friendly. Let me know down below the first step that you're gonna be taking. Make sure you check out the 2 freebies that I mentioned, the Mind Body Toolkit, which has tons of different self-care ideas in it, ways that you can take care of your mental health any time of the year. And then the lab testing guide, which will write out exactly what labs you should ask for, especially if you're feeling really low. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. I post new videos every single week, and thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I'm rooting for you every step of the way.